There are cars, and then there are legends, machines that go beyond their metal, rubber, and horsepower to become cultural icons. The 1970 Plymouth Cuda is one of those rare legends, a name that echoes in garages, racetracks, and car shows with reverence. The moment you hear Cuda, you don't just think of a car, you feel an entire era rise from the dust of the past. You remember a time when boldness ruled the streets, when muscle was king, and when design wasn't just about curves, it was about attitude. The 1970 Cuda wasn't just a response to the muscle car boom of the late 1960s. It was a thunderous statement. It told the world that Mopar wasn't playing games, it was here to dominate. With its wide stance, aggressive grille, and available high-performance powertrains, the Cuda didn't whisper, it roared. It didn't blend in, it stood tall, loud, and proud, demanding respect on the street and on the strip. What makes the 1970 Cuda truly special is how effortlessly it blends muscle and style. This wasn't a brute that sacrificed looks for brawn, it was a sculpted predator. From its bold shaker hood scoop peeking through the center of the hood, to its bold side stripes and deeply set dual headlights, the Cuda was a masterclass in visual intimidation. Every crease in its sheet metal seemed intentional, every stance calculated to strike both awe and envy. While other muscle cars were going for subtle aggression or suave presence, the Cuda decided to look like a street brawler dressed in designer leather. It had an edge, a swagger, a confidence that couldn't be faked, and that's why it remains unforgettable. But the Cuda wasn't just about looking mean, it was a performance monster. In its most formidable form, the 1970 Cuda could be equipped with the legendary 426 HEMI V8 engine, a fire-breathing beast that pushed out 425 horsepower and created a thunderous rumble that made other cars tremble. The HEMI Cuda wasn't just a high-performance machine, it was a street-legal race car. Built for speed and packed with torque, it could rocket down the quarter-mile in under 14 seconds, a feat that put it toe-to-toe with the fiercest rivals of the day. Even the smaller engine options, like the 383 Magnum or the 440 Super Commando, packed serious punch. The Cuda lineup offered a range of configurations, but no matter what was under the hood, it carried the soul of a street fighter, tuned to dominate. And then there's the cultural resonance. The Cuda wasn't just another name in the crowd, it was the poster car for Mopar's muscle movement. It starred in magazine covers, appeared in car commercials, and later found its way into movies and pop culture. Kids grew up dreaming of owning one. Enthusiasts restored them. Collectors chased them. And even today, more than half a century later, the Cuda remains a top-tier prize in the classic car world. At auctions, pristine examples, especially HEMI models, fetch astronomical prices, proving that this car's value isn't just measured in horsepower or 0 to 60 times, but in the emotion and nostalgia it inspires. Owning a Cuda isn't just about possessing a classic, it's about carrying a piece of history, a slice of an era where muscle cars weren't just transportation, they were statements. What's even more impressive is how the Cuda has maintained relevance over the decades. In an age where the automotive industry is moving toward electrification and digital innovation, the 1970 Cuda stands tall as a reminder of the analog days, when driving was raw, mechanical, and visceral. There are no complex driver aids here, no digital distractions, just you, the engine, the pavement, and the road ahead. That's the kind of purity that modern machines try to replicate but rarely achieve. And yet, the Cuda's legacy continues to influence today's designs. Just look at the modern Dodge Challenger, its silhouette, its aggressive stance, its commitment to unfiltered muscle, all of it owes a debt to the original Cuda. It's no surprise that enthusiasts continue to call for a modern revival of the Barracuda nameplate. The legend refuses to die. But beyond the spec sheets and the design brilliance lies something deeper, emotion. The 1970 Cuda stirs the soul. It takes you back to an America fueled by horsepower and ambition, where weekends meant drag strips and backroads, and where a car could define your identity. The Cuda wasn't just something you drove, it was something you lived. Every twist of the key, every rev of the engine, every rumble of that V8 under throttle was a celebration of freedom, speed, and defiance. It wasn't about being practical. It was about being unforgettable. And that's what the Cuda still is today, unforgettable. So as we begin this journey into the world of the 1970 Cuda, prepare to be transported. Prepare to discover not just a machine, but a masterpiece. A vehicle that captured the spirit of an era and continues to rule hearts even in a world of EVs and hybrids. The Cuda doesn't just exist in the past. It lives in every garage it calls home, in every enthusiast who restores it, and in every roar that echoes from its dual exhausts. This is the story of a true legend. This is the story of the 1970 Plymouth Cuda, the muscle car that still rules. Before the 1970 Cuda ever laid down its first patch of rubber, it had already undergone a transformation that would change the course of American automotive history. Its roots trace back to the Plymouth Barracuda, a compact fastback introduced in 1964 to compete with the Ford Mustang. But while the early Barracudas shared a platform with the humble Valiant and lacked the aggressive posture of a true muscle car, it sowed the seeds for something greater. By the late 1960s, the muscle car wars were raging, and Plymouth knew it needed more than just a sporty compact. It needed a street dominator, a bold declaration of power and style. Enter the 1970 Cuda, a model year that marked the car's metamorphosis into a full-fledged muscle machine. With a completely new E-body platform shared with the Dodge Challenger, the Cuda now had the wide stance, long hood, and short rear deck that muscle car fans craved. It was bolder, lower, meaner, and ready to battle. The 1970 model year wasn't just a redesign, it was a rebirth. This was the year Plymouth introduced the 446-pack engine option, a legendary setup with 3 two-barrel carburetors that delivered a ferocious 390 horsepower and earth-moving torque. It wasn't just powerful on paper, it was brutal in practice. This engine transformed the Cuda from a stylish cruiser into a quarter-mile killer. Alongside the available 426 HEMI and 383 Magnum, the 446-pack made sure there was no mistaking the Cuda's intentions. It was built to dominate the street, humiliate rivals at the stoplight, and earn its place in drag racing lore. But performance was only half the story. The 1970 Cuda was a visual punch in the face to the bland and the boring. It wore its attitude on its sheet metal with a shark-nosed grille that seemed to sneer at oncoming traffic. The wide body stance made it look like it was ready to pounce, while bold features like hood scoops, shaker hoods, and aggressive fender lines gave it an unmistakable silhouette. And then there were the colors. Oh, those colors. Plymouth offered high-impact paint options like Limelight, Vitamin C in Violet, and Lemon Twist that turned every Cuda into a rolling piece of pop art. With racing stripes, rally wheels, and blackout hoods, the Cuda was a visual masterpiece that looked as fast as it drove. When we talk about performance, we can't ignore the beating heart of the beast, the 446-pack. This engine setup wasn't about refinement, it was about raw, unfiltered aggression. With 3 carbs feeding a high-performance big-block V8, the Cuda came alive in a way that few cars could. It could launch from 0 to 60 in just over 5 seconds and rip through the quarter mile in the low 13ths when tuned right. It was a muscle car in the purest sense. No electronic aids, no traction control, just a driver, an engine, and the open road. The 446-pack gave the Cuda its identity, loud, brash, and totally unapologetic. Of course, the Cuda wasn't alone in the muscle car fight. It faced down titans like the Chevrolet Camaro SS, the Ford Mustang Mach-1, the Pontiac GTO, and the Dodge Charger R/T. Each had its loyalists and its strengths, but the Cuda carved out its own legend by doing things the Mopar way. While the Mustang was the original pony car and the Camaro had its Chevy performance pedigree, the Cuda was something different, a bit more aggressive, a bit more rebellious, and a lot more raw. It didn't just participate in the horsepower wars, it escalated them. And it proved its worth where it mattered most, on the track. In drag racing, the Cuda was a natural, with factory-backed HEMI Cudas dominating NHRA Superstock events. The car's balance and power also made it a force in Trans Am road racing, especially when campaigned by legendary teams like All-American Racers. NASCAR? Plymouth's engines were no strangers to oval tracks either, adding more weight to the Cuda's performance heritage. Whether it was laying rubber at the strip or carving corners on road courses, the Cuda had the goods to back up its aggressive image. But the Cuda's impact wasn't limited to time slips and trophies. It changed what people thought a muscle car could be. It showed that a car could be brutally fast but also turn heads with style. It redefined the standard for muscle car aesthetics with its low, wide look and flashy colors. And it set benchmarks in performance that rival automakers scrambled to meet. Decades later, you can still see the influence of the Cuda in modern muscle machines, cars that combine attitude, performance, and flair just like their 1970 ancestor. Then there's the cultural legacy. The Cuda became more than a car, it became a symbol. It showed up in movies, from underground street racing flicks to gritty crime dramas, always driven by someone with edge and purpose. It appeared in TV shows, rock album covers, and even in video games, capturing the imaginations of new generations who never saw one in the showroom. If you wanted to say your character was tough, cool, and maybe a little dangerous, you put them behind the wheel of a Cuda. That level of cultural saturation doesn't come easy, you earn it by being unforgettable. Today, the Cuda holds a special place in the hearts of collectors and car enthusiasts. Original 1970 HEMI Cudas are among the most valuable muscle cars on the planet, with pristine examples selling for well over $1 million at auction. But it's not just about the money. There's a passion around the Cuda that transcends rarity or resale value. It's about what the car represents, an era when performance mattered, when cars had personality, and when Detroit wasn't afraid to take risks. Enthusiast communities gather at car shows, online forums, and restoration garages to keep the Cuda spirit alive. Some restore them to concours perfection, others build restomats that bring modern technology to the classic frame. But all of them share the same love for a car that left an indelible mark on automotive history. The legacy of the Cuda isn't frozen in the past either. It continues to evolve. When Dodge began to revive the muscle car spirit in the 2000s with the reborn Charger and Challenger, they drew directly from the Cuda's DNA. Wide stances, bold grilles, aggressive hoods, and throwback styling cues all paid homage to the E-body classic. There were even persistent rumors and concept sketches of a modern Barracuda revival, a nod to the demand and love that still surrounds the name. While a new Cuda hasn't yet officially returned to production, the influence is everywhere. The spirit of the Cuda lives on every time a Hellcat engine growls to life or a scat-packed Challenger lights up its tires. What makes the Cuda's appeal so enduring is that it's not just about nostalgia. Yes, it represents a golden era of American performance, but it also stands as a blueprint for what makes a car truly great. A bold design that makes your heart race, power that pins you to your seat, a presence that turns every head on the street. That formula still works today, and the Cuda mastered it decades ago. Looking to the future, the Cuda's legacy seems destined to endure. As the industry shifts toward electric performance, autonomous driving, and sleek minimalist design, there will always be a place for raw, emotional machines like the Cuda. Whether it's through limited edition modern tributes, high-end restomats with electric drivetrains, or simply preserving the originals for future generations to admire, the legend lives on. And who knows? Maybe one day, we'll see a modern Cuda roll off the assembly line, capturing the same rebellious energy that made the 1970 version a star. In a world that moves faster and leans more digital with each passing year, the Cuda remains a vivid reminder of a time when cars were visceral, loud, and larger than life. It's more than a machine. It's a movement, a legacy, a muscle car legend that doesn't just rule the road, it rules the soul of every enthusiast who ever fell in love with horsepower, chrome, and the sound of freedom roaring through open headers. The Cuda isn't just history, it's heritage. And that heritage is still very much alive, rumbling strong through every burnout, every restoration, and every passionate conversation about the greatest muscle cars of all time. The 1970 Plymouth Cuda isn't just a car, it's a declaration of power, style, and pure American freedom. From its aggressive stance to the roar of its monstrous V8, the Cuda was born to rule the asphalt and etched its legacy into the Muscle Car Hall of Fame. Decades later, its legacy continues to inspire, captivate, and ignite passion in the hearts of car lovers around the world. This is more than nostalgia. This is a celebration of a machine that helped shape the identity of an entire generation of drivers. And now, it's your turn to be a part of this legacy. Whether you lived through the muscle car golden era or discovered the magic of the Cuda later on, we want to hear from you. Share your favorite Cuda moments. Maybe it was your first ride in one, the sound of its rumble that stuck with you, or a memory of building one in your garage. Comment, post, relive those experiences and let the next generation know what it felt like when true muscle roamed the streets. But don't stop there. Dive deeper. The Cuda community is alive and thriving, with forums, Facebook groups, car clubs, and shows keeping the spirit of 1970 roaring into the future. Whether you're restoring a Cuda, searching for one to call your own, or just soaking in the knowledge and stories from other enthusiasts, there's a tribe out there waiting for you. You'll find wrench turners who've brought rusted-out shells back to life, collectors showcasing pristine originals, and fans trading die-cast models and vintage advertisements like sacred relics. This community is more than a hobby. It's a brotherhood and sisterhood of people who understand that the Cuda is more than metal and horsepower. Its heritage. Its soul. So what does the future hold for the Cuda? While we may never see another one roll off the production line in its original form, its DNA lives on. Modern muscle cars owe their attitude and performance roots to legends like the Cuda. And who knows, maybe electric muscle will carry forward the fire in new, unexpected ways. But no matter how the industry evolves, one thing is certain, the Cuda's legacy is untouchable. It's the kind of car that doesn't fade with time. It grows more iconic, more revered, and more legendary. So here's to the car that redefined the road and still rules the hearts of enthusiasts. To the rumble, the paint, the power, the thrill. To the stories passed down, and the ones still waiting to be written. The 1970 Cuda isn't just a memory, it's a movement. Keep the legend alive. Embrace the roar. Celebrate the legacy. And most of all, never stop dreaming in muscle.